Hello, friends. Today we're going to actually get into cells and what they are made up of and what parts we need to know. Today, you guys started on your cell drawing. I don't did not make a video for it because I thought it was pretty straightforward. If you read the rubric, you're going to make either a plant or animal cell drawing. You're going to have some organelles in there. You're going to have a certain number of them. You're going to then define them. You tell me you basically follow the rubric, and it's a really easy amount of points. I'm always shocked every single year how many kids get points off on that project. So make sure you do that. You have a couple days to do that on the side. So we're going to split these notes up into 3 parts. So this is part 1. We're going to skip through some of the beginning stuff here. So just don't mind me if I keep going fast because we already talked about some of these guys. Yesterday we talked about Schwann, Sladen, and Virchow. And we talked about the cell theory. So these are the 3 parts of the cell theory. So cells, organisms are made up of one or more cells. Cells, basic unit of structure and function. All cells come from other cells. And as they become apparent, I need you guys to know these. And then today we talked a little bit about why is a cell theory called the theory, not a fact or a law. We kind of went through that in the other video, but I'll go through it again here. Is the cells, I mean, they're so wide ranging and they're so huge that you can't have one specified rule or law about cells because every cell is different. Even in our human body, we actually have cells that break some basic cell things. Like our red blood cells don't have a nucleus. Even though they're eukaryotic, they don't have a nucleus because they don't need one. All they need to really do is carry around oxygen. And so therefore they would break the law, and we can't have that. So theories are big ideas that have multiple different things going in and out of it. There's rules and exceptions and whatnot. Theories are large ideas in science. Laws are really, really specified small things, usually dealing with math. So cells, there's a lot of living things out there. So there's no way it would ever be a law. So I'll give you guys a second. See if you can connect these things. See if you guys can get them. Take a moment. So hook. So name cells, D. The hooks all animalcules or basic animals in the living things. That one might be a little hard because our notes yesterday didn't use the word animalcules, but you get the idea. We have Virchow who said cells come from other cells. We got Schladen who said all plants made up of cells, and Schwann that said all animals are made up of cells. All living things are made up of cells. Living things are the basic unit of structure and function. Cells come from other living cells. That is becoming easier and easier and easier and easier. So actually to cells today, what we're doing. So all cells have these 5 things. No matter what kind of cell they are, they all have this unifying principle. They all are going to have proteins, or ribosomes, which make protein. Ribosomes are the workers of the cell. They're really designed to be the guy that's going to do the basic principle of making proteins. We're going to learn later in this class, in the next couple of days, I should say this class, like tomorrow, that the job of a cell is to make proteins. So the ribosome is the main thing that is in all cells. It's making proteins. It's doing its job. We're going to find out later. I think it looks like a hamburger, but that's just my own opinion. Cytoplasm, that's the fluid material within the cell. Picture almost like the air of the cell. So if you look around you in the room right now, the room is not empty. Even though there's some empty air space that you think of as empty, there is something there. And the cytoplasm is the air of the cell. It's a fluid material that things can move around in, and it takes up space. And it allows things not to collapse in on itself. That's kind of important. DNA is genetic material. DNA is found in almost all living things. Some have a little bit more DNA than others. Some have their DNA in the nucleus, some don't. But the main idea is they all have a genetic material. They all have to pass on traits to their next generation. Cytoskeleton. Cytoskeleton, if you look at the word cyto, the prefix cyto, you're going to see that a lot, like in cytoplasm. Cyto means cell. Skeleton, I bet you can guess what skeleton means. So cytoskeleton means cell bones, cell structure. So cytoskeleton is the internal framework of the cell. It's going to help hold the cell together. It's going to hold it up. It's going to make sure it doesn't collapse in on itself. It allows for transport. We watched the video on Friday, and you guys saw some of the microtubules and microfilaments and things like that. That's the cytoskeleton. And finally, the cell membrane, that is the outer boundary. That is the guy that really is the end of the cell. It controls what comes in the cell, but it also controls what goes out of the cell. So its job is basically like a town line, but with security. It's only letting in certain things, and it's only letting go certain things. We'll move on forward from there. Prokaryotes. So we kind of talked about prokaryotes before. I want to make sure that we're good on them. Prokaryotic cells are the first kinds of cells that ever existed on Earth. They are simple cells. They do not have as much complexity as eukaryotic cells. Bacteria are always prokaryotic cells. So bacteria are prokaryotic cells, and these cells do not have a nucleus. Their DNA is just free floating. So you can see their free floating DNA. You can also see their ribosomes here. The orange guy here is their cell membrane, and the orange in here is the cytoplasm, and then their cytoskeleton. The flagellum here is the cytoskeleton, but also is the cilia and whatnot. And they usually don't draw a cytoskeleton on the inside, but imagine there being a bunch in there, almost like a framework of wood beams and stuff like that. That's what's inside there. So here's two actual bacteria images, so you can take a look at them. E. coli lives in your gut, and if you get E. coli in the wrong places, and cause food poisoning and other problems. And there's this bacteria to the right that can cause anthrax. As you can see, microscopes are pretty good nowadays, especially when I left, and we can see really small things, but you can kind of get the idea. It kind of looks like that guy a little bit. So let's label this prokaryote real quick. So we have cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is going to be B, this area here. DNA, we got C. Cell membrane, looks like we're going to do a big, I would say, this one gets a little harder. So I'm going to do D. So this is the cell membrane on the inside, this little blue line here. On the outside of that cell membrane, something we'll talk about in a couple minutes here is the cell wall. Kind of goes right here. Is that yellowish, light yellowish, or whitish, I guess? I don't know, I'm colorblind. And capsule, that is this thicker layer on the outside here. And then we have ribosomes, which is A, and then the flagellum, which is G. We'll talk more about these in a second. So I guess not, because I forgot that took out that slide. So let's talk about these guys. So a capsule. A capsule is found on bacteria, especially bacteria that is actually harmful, and it's an outer layering of protection. So it's almost like an extra coat that your body has to break through to kill the bacteria, and so it makes the bacteria extra strong. Now, there are some problems with having a capsule. It's harder for them to get stuff in and out of the bacteria and send signals and whatnot, but it's a trade-off. You can't do certain things, but you can do other things that other bacteria can't. The cell wall, we'll talk about that in eukaryotic, but it's just an extra layer of protection again. It's made of cellulose most of the time, which is a carbohydrate, and it's super strong. Most living things can't break down cellulose. And I think everything else was there. Eukaryotic cells. So for our eukaryotic cells, they're found in plants, animals, protists, and fungi, or funguses. The cell is composed of four main parts: the cell membrane, which is the outside again, the cytoplasm, which is again the fluid in between, the nucleus, which is a control center of the cell, and it holds the DNA, so it's what kind of controls what's going on in the cell. And then there is a smattering and a small amount of organelles. They are small structures that carry out specific functions. Organelles is a French word meaning little organs. So got it exactly right there. Like it says little organs. L's meaning little organ, obviously organs. So we're going to go through a couple of these and see how far we can get. I don't want to go too far, so probably a couple, let's see. Probably get the gold G. So nucleus has a nuclear membrane, nuclear pores. So you can take a look here. This is the nucleus. We have the outer membrane in the nucleus. That's the nuclear membrane. And we have pores, which are little tiny openings that let things in and out. Almost makes them look like a purple golf ball here. But these are actually little holes that things go in and out of the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you have two big things. You have DNA, and the DNA is in one of two forms. This is something that kids struggle with sometimes. So if a cell is just hanging out doing nothing and is not dividing, is not really doing anything that important, its DNA hangs out on chromatin. Picture chromatin almost like spaghetti. It's just unstructured DNA. It's just floating around. When it's actually needing to be used and it's going to be divided and actually be separated out, DNA then forms up and winds itself back up into something called chromosomes, which is a word you guys have heard of before. And these are used during cell division to kind of split DNA up. But most of the time, DNA is something called chromatin, which is just a spaghetti-like soup of DNA. The other thing that's found in the nucleus is the nucleolus, which makes the cell's ribosomes. It's always a very, very dark spot in the nucleus. And this guy just makes the ribosomes. That's his main job, is he's going to make the guys that make proteins. And so he is obviously super important. So therefore, our cell puts him in the nucleus because the nucleus is probably the safest place inside your cell. So this guy's going to make the ribosomes. The DNA is floating around elsewhere. It's in a chromatin form until it needs to really be used, and then it becomes in a chromosome form. We have nuclear pores, which are holes in and out, and a nuclear membrane. So let's do a true and false. Number one, all cells have a nucleus. All cells have a cell membrane. Eukaryotic cells are only cells to have a flagellum. The nucleus contains the cell's DNA. Chromatin will become chromosomes. The nucleolus makes the cell's DNA. So here we go. All cells have a nucleus. That is false. Prokaryotes do not. All cells have a cell membrane. That is true. Every single cell has a cell membrane. Eukaryotic cells are the only cells that have a flagellum. That is false. Prokaryotic cells can have a flagellum as well. That is the little whip-like tail at the end that allows a protist to move forward. We also have them on some eukaryotic cells. The nucleus contains the cell's DNA. That is true. That's where our DNA is if you have a nucleus. Chromatin will become chromosomes. That is true. Chromatin can become chromosomes. And the nucleus, or nucleolus, makes the cell's DNA. That is false. The nucleolus makes ribosomes. Cool. Hope that's becoming easier and easier and easier. Actually, I think that's where I'm going to stop video one. Tomorrow we'll pick up on our notes. So hopefully you did pretty well. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you, guys.